Hi everybody, it's Laura. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I'm excited to share this mixed media layout with you. To create this layout, I used the March Shimmerz Color Kitz collection. I'm a little late on posting this video. This is an Easter themed layout. March was a very crazy month. There were lots of doctor's appointments. We had some termites. There were a lot of things going on this month, but I'm excited that everything is for the most part taken care of. And I'm so happy to just be sitting in my scrapbooking room and voicing this over. When I created this layout, I was away at a scrapbooking weekend, and what happened to me was what often happens to me. I forgot to bring one of the supplies that I wanted to bring. I wanted to use some Inklingz blue spruce in the background. I thought that blue would be a good color to go along with the little touches of blue that are in this collection, but I failed to bring it. So instead, I'm going to create a mixed media background with pinks, which will make the layout a little bit more of a, not a totally monochromatic layout, but there are lots and lots of pinks on this layout. Whenever I create a mixed media background, I always use a piece of 120-pound smooth white cardstock that I have coated with some white Liquitex gesso. I have those prepared so that I can just start scrapbooking whenever I am ready to go, and I brought a number of them with me on this weekend. The first color that I used is a Shimmerz called Pink Caviar. That's included in the March Color Kitz collection. As you can see, I'm using a piece of plastic to spread the color all around the background. I like to use a small piece of plastic. I find that I can control it a little bit better when the plastic is on the smaller side. And then I also use a paintbrush to help me add some splatters to the background. I just add a little bit of extra water in the cap, and I like to add a lot of splatters to my mixed media layouts. I always tend to concentrate the splatters around the outside edge of where I've added the color in the background. For this layout, I know I'm going to have my photo and all of my embellishments in the center of the layout. So for this layout, I'm really not worried about adding any splatters in the center area at all. After adding quite a few splatters of the pink caviar, I switched over to the absolutely mauvelous Inklingz. I was pretty happy with the way the background looked. However, I thought it couldn't hurt to add a shade of another similar color. So I'm once again using the packaging technique and my paintbrush, and I'm adding color in the exact same area that I added the pink caviar. I was happy with the way the two colors looked together. And then, of course, I had to add some splatters of this color as well. After I was done adding splatters of the absolutely mauvelous to the background, I let the background dry, and now I want to add some modeling paste through a stencil. Now, I have to admit that the stenciling didn't really show up as much as I would have liked it to, and the reason for that is that I forgot to bring my heavy-bodied white acrylic paint with me, and I found that by mixing that in with the modeling paste, it makes the stenciling much more noticeable. I do like the texture that it added to the background. I feel like whenever I'm making a mixed media background, I add lots of different layers. Some of them will be more visible than others, but I do think that everything kind of mixes together to make an interesting background. As far as the modeling paste, I tend to go through different stages where I use different combinations of texture paste. So right now I'm using a combination of Master's Touch modeling paste. That's from Hobby Lobby. I just picked that up because I ran out of Liquitex. And then I mix that with some Ranger texture paste. And they're kind of different. The Ranger texture paste is a little bit more transparent. And then, like I said, I usually mix it with some white acrylic paint, but I ended up just pouring a little bit of my watered down white acrylic paint in there with the mix. And although it made a little bit of a difference, it wasn't as effective as the heavy-bodied white acrylic paint is at making the texture paste white. The stencil that I'm using is a Crafter's Workshop stencil. It's called Mini Cherry Blossoms. I love that stencil. I use it all the time. And now I'm adding some additional splatters with another one of the colors that was in the March kit. This one is a Vibez called Quit Your Whinin'. I like the way this color is a noticeably darker color than the pink in the background, but it goes along with it. And then it goes really well with some of the embellishments I'm going to be layering on top. I add lots of splatters all around the area of color, and then I allow the background to dry. I lost some of the footage for making this background for my layout. I'm using some strips of wood grain paper from a beautiful paper that was included in this month's kit. What I did was I cut 4 strips of paper. 2 of them remained whole, and then 2 of them I cut 45-degree angles in the corner. First, I applied the 2 solid strips, one on either side, and then on the top and the bottom, I layered over the papers that had the corners already cut, and that makes it look like a little frame. I cut my layout down a little bit, and I placed that over the top of the border that I had created. And then I went back to working with those strips that you saw me working with at the beginning of the layout. I mounted them all on a piece of white cardstock. That just makes it so much easier for me to move them around and to make sure that they're all straight. Otherwise, I feel like I'm struggling the whole time with making sure each individual strip of paper is positioned correctly on the layout. Then I mounted my photo in the center of the layout. I have a photo of my 2 daughters and my 2 nieces at Easter. I mounted my photo on a piece of white cardstock and then again on a piece of the green pattern paper that was in the kit. I included a layer of fun foam behind the photo to give it a little bit of dimension. The frames that I placed on the layout, those are from the embellishment pack from the March kit. And then I had 3 branches left over from the first layout that I made with the March kit this month, and I thought that was just enough to add to this layout. Now I'm inking one of the embellishments that I'm going to use as my title. This says Happy Easter. I'm mounting it on that same green paper that I used to mount my photo. And then I am fussy cutting all around the outside of the pattern paper so that it'll be the same shape as the title. And to ink the edges of the green paper that I have on the layout, I use Distress Oxide in Pine Needles. And the title is going to go in the upper left-hand corner, not too far away from the photo. I want to make sure that I still keep it within the area that I have the cluster. I don't want it to be too separate and too far away from everything else on the layout. In the embellishment pack, there were 2 different colors of film strips. I love these. I think they layer so nicely into layouts. So I picked the lighter colored one. I cut it in half. I put half on top of the photo and half below the photo. And then I reinforced the back of my title with a little bit of white cardstock. I like to do that when I pop elements up on foam. And here I'm adding a little bit more of the fun foam to the back. Now the title and the photo will be popped up. And I think those are 2 important things to give some dimension to. I've been scrapbooking on scrapbooking weekends with my friend Sue for many, many years. She switched from scrapbooking to card making, and I find she has some of the most amazing dies. These dies were made by Phil Martin, and the name of the company is Creative Expressions. So I borrowed them from her, and I think these are really cool. I like the way they're hollow. I use the Quit Your Whinin' to turn them from white to a beautiful plum color. And now I am inking the edges of a number of embellishments from the kit. I'll be incorporating those into the layout. First, I added an epoxy dot underneath the photo. I love those dots. They are just a really nice addition, I think, to layouts because they're a different texture than all of the paper on the page. So I began adding the embellishments that I inked the edges of. I added a little postage stamp to the right of the photo, and then I found there were a number of really pretty flowers, so I am spreading those all around the layout. And I am once again including some bunnies. I included a number of those on the first layout of the month, and I was really happy there were plenty to include on this layout as well. So I have those rabbits in a couple of different areas. And then I began attaching down all of those elements. I was happy with where I had them placed. But whenever possible, I like to use ATG adhesive because I do sometimes change my mind, and that makes it easy to switch things around. I used my T-square to make sure that I had the 2 pieces of the film strip in line with each other. I think that that's something that could really throw off the whole layout if something like that is crooked. And I don't show all the footage of me attaching everything down, but I did complete my rotation around the layout and attach everything that I have there on the layout down. All of those die cut pieces that I painted a little while ago are dry now, and I'm going to tuck those into a couple of different spots on the layout. I like the touches of this darker color, And if you look at the centers of some of the flowers, they have this color there, so it coordinates really well with all the embellishments that are in the kit. I didn't end up using nearly all of the branches that I made. I didn't want to overload the layout with too many branches, but I have some left over for another layout that I can create with this month's kit. So if you've been with me for a while, you probably know that I love to add photo corners to my layouts, and I use an EK Success photo corner punch to punch the photo corners out of pattern paper so that they'll coordinate with the rest of the layout. I ink the edges once again with the Distress ink in Vintage Photo, and then I attach one down in each corner. I just really love the finished look that this gives to my photos. It's just something that I really enjoy doing. I fussy cut out a whole bunch of the teeny tiny flowers from one of the pattern papers, and I once again inked the edges of all the flowers. I'm going to scatter them all around the layout. I thought they would just add a nice little petite touch to the layout. There's a lot of larger elements, and I like to have elements on the page that are on the larger side and then also on the smaller side. I think that the variety of sizes makes the layout so much more interesting to look at. And then I continued around the layout, adding those teeny tiny flowers either right in the area of color or very close to the area of color. I didn't want to scatter them all over the page. I wanted to keep all of my embellishments generally in that area where I've added the mixed media background. Once I had every last one of those little flowers attached down, I began considering what kinds of jewels I wanted to add to my layout. I always like to finish out layouts like this with some pearls or rhinestones or enamel dots. For this layout, I decided that I was going to use some gold rhinestones. These are self-adhesive, and I placed those on all 4 of the photo corners, and then I also placed them in the centers of many of those little flowers that are on the layout. For the flowers, I used some really, really small rhinestones, and then for the photo corners, I used the next size up. And then at some point, it struck me that it might look kind of nice to have the smaller flowers layered in the centers of those larger flowers. So I tried that out, and I liked the way that looked. On one of the sheets of pearls that I had with me, I found that I had just a couple of very, very small pink pearls that I thought matched in really well with the colors on this layout. So I decided to use those pearls in the centers of 3 of the flowers. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I wanted to include some blue on this layout because there were touches of blue in the pattern papers and embellishments. But since I forgot my blue paint, I incorporated the blue by adding some of the blue Easter eggs that were in the embellishment pack, and then a couple of enamel dots in the same color of blue that I had in my stash. And I used those enamel dots in a couple of different sizes all around the layout. Some of the dots were having a little bit of trouble sticking down, so I went back later and I added some glossy accents to make sure that they stayed put. That is the last touch I made to this layout. This layout is complete, and here are some close-ups. When you place an order with Shimmerz Paints, if you put my name in the comments box, you'll receive a free gift. The link to the Shimmerz website is in the description box, where you could check out all of the beautiful color kits. They're filled with paints and papers and lots of embellishments. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.